the ECU's trying to pull timing.
Right guys, welcome back to the channel again today. Today's map day. We're on our way down to Giz Motorsport. It's early morning, got Grant in the car. Say hello, Grant.
Hey Grant.
Right, we'll catch you once we're there. See you in a minute guys. We're finally here, Giz Motorsport. As you can see, car's there, just doing final little checks. And there's Astra self. Hey. So right, we're going to get it in, get it all strapped down and see how we go. See you in a minute. Right guys, first run today. You probably can't hear me that well, but let's see what it makes on the first run.
First run done on the unknown software it's on. So the first run we've got is, if it can see the graph, is 241 horsepower, but it's a bit all over the place. So we get this sort of initial spike where the boost sort of spikes up, it then comes down, and then as we get high up the revs, it's more than what it basically goes way above its request. So the ECU believes, because it can't control the boost, or it's so far off where it wants it to be in the previous software, is it shuts the electronic throttle down to prevent that airflow getting into the engine to cause a lean condition or damage, which the log shows as well. So if we go through the log, all these different data trails, all the data we will read throughout the ramp run of the dyno, with all the actual readings along the side. So as the dyno run starts to progress, is the dyno won't let the car physically accelerate, it'll hold it at a set load. So as it goes to sit there, the boost slowly starts to climb. I've attempted to open the throttle the whole way, but the ECU shut it down, and the throttle is actually only sitting at round about, the throttle's only opening to actually 65%, so it's already seeing it's higher above its boost set point. As we start to let it go, the revs will increase, and this line here is what we're reading boost wise. So we get this big initial spike come up, mainly down to the, by the looks of the software, it's just looking for a stock actuator. So it tries to open the actuator thinking there's going to be a lot less spring pressure, gets this big spike. It sees it slightly, and this little pink line at the top is a throttle position, so it just tries to close the throttle on us slightly. But as the boost comes back down, where the solenoid has been able to electronically open more to let the wastegate go, the throttle closes again. But then as we get to the top, as the revs start to increase, the turbine speed picks up, the boost starts to spike back up, then this pink line here is where the throttle shuts completely back down, and it shuts it all the way down to 35%, which is pretty much as it's going to let it close. And then it still started to see, even with the throttle closed, is that the boost still tries to climb. So then it goes into a full cut basically, and tries to literally cut the revs down, and it ends up dropping all its timing into near enough negative numbers. Mainly just because it's not mapped. That's all it is really. But we can work around it now. We actually start tuning. It's always good to see if we can get a pull safely. As for the fueling, it wasn't too bad. Where the bit of a spike was, it was just clipping 13:1, so fairly lean. And then it just sort of sat at about 11.8 up the top. So it is trying still to fuel properly, but of course it's all a bit confused with the changes. So now we're going to put the injectors in, the bigger map sensor, and we'll start tuning.
Right, lovely.
And we'll see how we get on. if the ignition timing starts to get a lot of shakiness in it, you can usually see the ECU's trying to pull timing. At the minute we've got knock controls still inactive, so it's not actually picking up any form of misfires or anything. So as we go to come up on boost, fueling comes down, and we're sitting at, we're just sitting a little bit, I wouldn't say richer, but we're sat at about 11.8, which is where we want to be. Just dips a tad richer to about 11.7 at the top. So we've got a little bit of smoothing and things like that to do, but everything all looks pretty good. So we'll keep going a bit further.
Yeah, lovely.
The boost sort of still keeps increasing. Is you can see where we're gaining more in the mid, but at the top the power's tailing off even quicker.
Yeah,
it's mainly just down to how the KO4 is really. On these it's quite a restrictive exhaust manifold, but the turbine's quite small. It's why you see like the likes of the KRS Stage 3s and even things like the turbo rebuilds, their KO6 Evolution, tend to do quite well because they've got a bigger turbine. The only way to combat it is to go onto like a class and exhaust manifold, which you'll gain a bit, but from what we've seen is sort of, not as much as others have stated, but physically on the dyno we've seen, sort of 10, 15 to 20 horsepower gain, which is a fairly big investment for only a little bit more power. The only massive benefit you get from the class and exhaust manifolds really is that the EGTs drop quite substantially, which is fantastic really, because you haven't got the restriction. But the turbine is certainly the main issue we really tend to see, actually, in the turbocharger. So we've still got a bit more to go. Of course, the peak power is probably going to end up around, from the looks of it, around about 5,800 RPM. And then we've still got a little bit more towards the red line, but the power's still going to tail off quite fast, just mainly because we even see it in the log. The boost just starts to flatline, and where we start to see a restriction is the airflow, which is the MAF line, the blue line there, just starts to flatline as well. So physically there's no more air, probably most likely going out of the engine, so nothing can get in, so it just completely flatlines it. So if you were to run like an exhaust manifold pressure sensor, you'd see that probably the exhaust pressure, the pressure in the exhaust manifolds probably getting pretty high, almost to as high as the actual boost pressure we're trying to force into the engine. So you just become, basically you're just choking the engine, and you need to look at more upgrades really. But we'll see what she'll do. Still a bit more to go in her yet.
Lovely.
So.
Well done. Hey. Right, as you see guys, that's pretty good going. He's hit 305 already. That's only on the fourth, 1, 2, 3, fourth run really, from the standard one. So yeah, fingers crossed, let's see if it gets any more.
Where we was when it came in to where we are now, gives you a bit of an idea of looking at the log. So when it sort of came in, is what we've ended up with is, as originally as it came on boost, we got this massive spike to up to sort of 1.8 bar. It then sort of dropped off. The boost control tries to sort itself, goes so far. As the boost comes back up, the ECU deems that it can't control it anymore and shuts the throttle. The boost still tries to increase, but the good thing about shutting the throttle is that this little pink line near the fueling, it does try to correct it to prevent any engine damage. So with the boost curve looking like quite a bit of a mess, to be fair, from how it was on the previous map to where we are now, we have a nice smooth curve as it goes to come up onto boost. Our little pink line at the top, which you can barely see there, that throttle stays open all the time, so the ECU is seeing exactly what it wants. So our boost comes up, so considering the original map sort of did 240 horsepower with a lot of issues, we're at 1.7 bar peak, so we're not doing that, we're actually lower boost where TV1 was trying to peak and then the ECU was getting upset. And just as it goes to die down at the top, no matter, we're pretty much out of duty cycle on the ECU now electronically, so we're struggling to hold the gate shut anymore. Just down to a bit of the restriction of the stock turbo really, well I say stock turbo, stock turbine in the turbo. It sort of happens. The only other way is increase the turbine size and the turbo for some of the higher end hybrids. So ignition timing's pretty good, no jolty lines, we're actually currently not getting any timing pull or anything like that. And as we go to come on to boost, the AFR line sits and we're pretty happy sitting at about 11.8 to 1. So all looking pretty good. The main thing to notice is why you often see VXR power graphs drop back down at the top of the rev range is often this line here. So in an ideal world is what we would see is the RPM line, which is the dark blue line, would match up to the light blue line where the airflow would go up, or this airflow would only increase as the boost pressure increases, which you can sort of see here. The gap, the differential between these two blue lines closes up as the boost starts to increase. But what we get to see is because the boost starts to drop, the airflow also flatlines, and it's just a sign showing that this engine is really struggling to take any more air in. It's just a bit of the nature of the VXR. Certainly like the Corsa VXRs with a bit of a better flowing cylinder head, which they are, the line more tends to match up closer towards where the RPM line is. But this is just sort of part and parcel of how the stock Astra VXR turbine sits on the turbo. But all in all, not done too bad. Yeah, 25 horsepower near as damn it. So, but a lot of torque. So it's certainly going to be fun and enjoyable, that's for sure.
I think he's going to enjoy that, isn't you, Grant? He is. But no,
we'll get her on the road and see what she does.
That's it. So I'm going to pass you over to Ash now. He's going to take Grant out and see how she performs on the road. Right, guys, see you in a minute. Cheers.
We'll take a good old ride to the now famous, it seems, private road. Can damage that? Well, launching any car can cause damage. Oh, we've let this gentleman come out. Obviously wasn't expecting us to be down here. And lovely, we have some dog walkers. They love me down here. So we may be booing it on the way back. What you'll find with the launch is all it does is it limits the throttle. It limits the revs until you've fully got traction. So you don't have to do anything special. It defaults to on and it defaults instantly turning itself off as well. So you can sort of have a fairly good play around with it, and you don't have to switch anything or do anything special. All I sort of try to do is give people tips on how I like to use it, really. So you don't have to do anything out of this world or anything like that. So as soon as we just get the other side of these, the good old Fast and the Furious style, if you can make it to the to the railroad crossing, which always makes it entertaining. We made it just before the train, not quite as dramatic, but we made it before the train. So the launch, you don't have to do anything fancy. Now I tend to like having the traction control off. But all you have to do is near enough. Just if you rev it flat out, it'll just sort itself out. So literally flat out, it will set and launch. All I ever tend to do is to say stop it rolling forward. Is just keep a bit of tension on the handbrake. It's like being in your driving test again. All I do is like feel the car bog down, feel the car, like so you feel the back end squat a bit. All I do is get a bit of a biting point, foot flat to the floor. Then when you want to go, handbrake down, off your clutch slide. Places if you like. I'll let you have a ride back, Grant, and see what you think.
Oh, thank you. So ideal because it's in my position already.
Yeah, look at it, one of the few people I've had to actually adjust the seat. But say you're right both ways. Say all I do is both wait till we pass the final dog walker, and then we can go berserk.
So let's just get like used to the clutch and that.
Yeah, oh no,
It's, you know, because it's obviously a little bit more like.
Yeah, it's still on its sport as well, so it'll be keen to still accelerate.
Go just from third?
Yeah, just go for it. You happy?
Yeah.